Joined by Fordham Interim Director of Athletics Ed Kull, Emmanuel Berbari back with you. The Atlantic 10 announces that all fall sports will be postponed. Ed, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me again, Manny. I appreciate you and your support of Fordham Athletics. I know you and I have been talking a lot the last few months, so I appreciate your continued support and sharing of our Fordham Athletic message to our community.
No problem. My pleasure, Ed. The Atlantic 10 makes the announcement. Unfortunate news, of course, but after the Patriot League came down with this last week, did you view this as sort of inevitable?
Yeah, I did see, obviously, the kind of our direction and our situation kind of moving this way. I know it's probably not a surprise to many. And then especially after, of course, our Patriot League decision on Monday to suspend football this fall, I know a lot of our fall sport coaches and student athletes were probably waiting and looking for this information, this update. And obviously, I sit here with you with a heavy heart and disappointment and sadness for our student athletes once again, after what took place in the spring, obviously earlier this week with football, and now obviously the remainder of our fall sports have been suspended. And obviously our continued efforts to move the fall season into the spring season where they can have some competition and again, more in a safer and healthier environment. And as we've talked about it throughout these 4 months of the pandemic, safety and health is a priority for our student athletes, continues to be and always will be. And, you know, we've talked a lot. The Atlantic 10 ADs have done a great job of meeting weekly the last 4 months, including the Atlantic 10 presidents, monitoring the situation extremely closely. And I think as we sit here in the third week of July, we were looking to get students and student athletes back on campus here in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, a decision needed to be made. And as disappointed and sad I am for our student athletes, and I'm going to have a town hall with them on Monday to discuss all their feelings and next steps on everything, I at least feel good that we have provided our student athletes and our families some clear direction. And they're able to now plan. They have ample time. They have ample information to make some decisions in terms of travel, in terms of coming back to campus here in a few weeks, moving into the residence halls, et cetera, where a lot of things were in limbo in terms of the process between practice, workouts, testing, and coming back to campus. So at least we provide a little bit more clarity and a little more focus on reopening Fordham and getting back to school and campus this summer.
Part of this announcement is a 60-day look-in window. Ed, what would that entail in the sense that the season is postponed, but there is a little bit of a window here to reevaluate the situation?
You know, I think it's an open-mindedness. And again, you know, I give kudos to Bernadette McGlade, the Atlantic 10 commissioner, and her leadership throughout this stretch. As you and I have communicated multiple times, the A10 got out in front in terms of conferences on making the regional and geographical pods for our fall sports about 2 months ago. We talked about and banned any air travel and overnight hotels, and we were very, very creative and aggressive in terms of the protection of our fall sports student athletes. And then, unfortunately, of course, today it's continued to evolve to the decision we've made of suspending fall sports and looking at a spring season for all of our fall programs. I think the 60-day window is just a continued open-mindedness to check in on what's going on, see how things are. If we have, obviously, an incredible improvement in our country and in our climate, obviously it just provides the continued conversation. And I think, you know, that dialogue will not change week to week, but obviously gives a little bit of a 60-day check-in for us. And I also think it's really important, Manny, for that 60-day check-in, which would be obviously the middle of September. We have not made any decisions on winter sports. Winter sports were not part of this conversation. So I think that 60-day check-in is right in line as well with the evaluation and a decision-making process and preparation for our winter sports, which we start practicing there probably around the end of September.
Ed, you mentioned the winter sports. I'm sure a natural thought could be the Atlantic 10 contains the basketball programs at Fordham, men's and women's basketball. What do you think would have to change between now and, let's say, October or November for there to be a basketball season that goes unaffected?
Yeah, great comment, Manny. And it's hard to believe that back in March 11th or 12th, we started this conversation around basketball with the cancellation of the Atlantic 10 tournament and inevitably the NCAA tournament. And once again, now we've moved the conversation to the start of the basketball season. And, you know, I think the A10 has expressed obviously strong priority and their focus being a basketball conference, a basketball driven conference, and our efforts to to maintain and preserve the basketball seasons. It's also a little bit unique, of course, where basketball starting really, the end of October through the winter months into January kind of elapses both semesters. So it's obviously something we want to monitor closely in terms of the situation. I think in terms of positives that we want to see in order of results and actions to feel good about the future is, of course, obviously decreases instead of spikes in the States. I think obviously we want to see positivity and success maybe in some of the professional sports right now, Manny. I think everybody's watching closely. The MLS soccer, hopefully the NBA is able to get up and running. Same with Major League Baseball here in the next couple of weeks, kind of get some findings and success stories of how they're doing it. And I think we also want to see, Manny, to be quite honest, and it seems general and vague, but it's really truthful, is the overall campus opening. I think we want to see many campuses cross country open safely. We want to see testing be productive and safe. We want to see the students be able to live in the res life and res villages together and be safe in terms of tests. So I think seeing a little bit of the overall climate and culture, and as you know, and this obviously plays very much into Fordham University as we hope to get open here in the next week or two, being part of phase 4 of New York State's opening. You're at the mercy of each individual state too. So each state is still being very much governed by their state laws and regulations. And that's an overall situation that's being monitored by school, by state, by geography. So there's a bunch of variables that tie into this, unfortunately, and I think that's part of it. And I had even said earlier that, even for New York City, some of the challenges of domestic travel right now and the 14-day quarantine coming from different states that are out, as well as the international travel issue for our international students, is something we're monitoring very closely and carefully as well.
You talked about variables, and if sports were to return around that New Year point of January, and then you had a football season, maybe the middle of the basketball season, and then baseball and softball slated for the spring as well, would that create any complications having everything firing away at the same time, or are there contingency plans for something like that?
Yeah, we've started those plans. Of course, we've had multiple plans all along in terms of reopening, delayed starting, geographical challenges, a change in geography in terms of travel and keeping it bus trips only. So we've worked on a bunch of plans over the last 4 months, and our athletics pandemic committee has been extremely helpful. This now we've begun and we'll continue to work on now is looking at what the spring season would look like with multiple sports. As you know very well, that obviously some of our facilities are shared. Some of our facilities are shared by multiple varsity sports. So how do we get creative in terms of being able to schedule competitions, not only game scheduling, but of course practice competitions and workouts, and not only in terms of a little bit of a condensed and congested facility situation, but also obviously the means of we're unknown about the social distancing. So we're still continuing to plan accordingly with those social distancing strategies and regulations. And even right now in the fall, Manny, I don't want to leave out, right now the A10 obviously still is providing and allowing practice and workouts to occur. So that's something we're going to be continuing to monitor as well in terms of our fall sports, being able to practice in a safe manner, in a safe way. But yeah, there'll definitely be a lot going on in the spring if all of our sports are up and running. But obviously that would be a real positive thing for our student athletes and for our campus and for New York City. So let's hope things are getting clearer and looking better in that stretch of time.
Ed, appreciate a few minutes here, and thanks so much for the update.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you again.